I cheated on my husband, and when I found out I was pregnant, panic gripped me. I didn't know who the child was from. I took a paternity test and faked it. I thought it was my only chance to save my marriage. But a lie is a ticking time bomb, and it exploded at the worst possible moment. My name is Emma, and I'm 30 years old. I've been married to Liam for 8 years. We met as students when we were both building our careers and dreaming of a great future. Liam was always driven, ambitious, and someone who never backed down from challenges. I fell in love with him precisely because of that strength, that unwavering confidence he carried. Our wedding was magical. A white dress, tears of joy, vows we spoke in front of everyone. We dreamed of a life together, of children, of a big house with a garden where we would sit together drinking morning coffee. But life has a way of changing even the strongest feelings. After the wedding, Liam became consumed by work. He climbed the corporate ladder, becoming an executive at a major company, and his days turned into endless meetings, phone calls, and business trips. I supported him. I knew it was important to him, to us. But with each passing year, he drifted further away. We no longer talked in the evenings about little things. We didn't laugh. We didn't argue over silly matters. His tenderness had been replaced by quick goodnight kisses, his attention by gifts he brought home after yet another business trip, thinking they would make up for his absence. I started feeling lonely. Yes, I had friends, hobbies, a job. But nothing could fill the emptiness inside me. One evening, I tried to talk to him. "Liam, we need to spend more time together," I said during dinner when we finally sat at the table, just the two of us. He looked up from his phone. "I'm trying, love. It's just a busy period right now. Things will settle down soon. You've been saying that for years now." He sighed and took my hand. "I love you, Emma. You know that." I smiled, but inside, something clenched painfully. I knew he was telling the truth. But love isn't just words. Love is action. It's attention. It's the little moments that make us happy. And we didn't have those anymore. I had no idea what lay ahead. I had no idea that soon I would make a mistake that would change my entire life. But that night, when Liam once again locked himself in his office to work and I crawled into a cold bed alone, I allowed myself to think for the first time. What if this isn't the life I truly want? Life went on as usual. Liam, as always, was consumed by work, and I had almost resigned myself to the fact that our relationship had become a routine. We lived together, slept in the same bed, talked about everyday things, but the spark that once felt endless between us was gone. It weighed on me, but I didn't know what to do about it. One day, my best friend, Lauren, called me. "Emma, you absolutely have to come." Her voice sounded as if she had just won the lottery. "Come where?" "To my bachelorette party. You know I'm getting married." Of course, I knew. And I was genuinely happy for her. She had always dreamed of a grand wedding, and her fiancé was perfect, caring, attentive, head over heels in love with her. "Do you really want me to party in a club?" "Lauren, I haven't lived that kind of life in a long time." "Which is exactly why you need to come. When was the last time you had fun? When was the last time you did something just for yourself?" I sighed. She had a point. My life had turned into a cycle of responsibilities, and even though I knew Lauren just wanted me to enjoy myself, part of me resisted. "One night, Emma. Just come. I promise you'll love it." I agreed. The club was luxurious. Loud music, neon lights, the scent of expensive perfume, laughter, conversations, dancing. It all felt foreign to me, as if I had entered a world I no longer belonged to. I didn't drink much, just held a cocktail in my hand, listening to my friends chat. Lauren was glowing with happiness, and I caught myself feeling a little envious. Not because she was getting married, but because she looked so alive. "You need to relax." She winked at me, pouring more alcohol into my glass. I smiled, took a sip, and turned, only to feel someone's gaze on me. He was standing by the bar, watching me. Tall, slightly tousled hair, a confident smile, eyes filled with curiosity. His presence was so intense that I instinctively looked away, but the feeling of being watched lingered. A few minutes later, he approached me. "Let me guess. You don't come here often." I raised an eyebrow in surprise. "What gave it away?" "The way you awkwardly hold your drink like you're not sure what to do with it. And how you keep glancing around, as if looking for the exit." I laughed. "My name's Noah," he introduced himself, extending a hand. I hesitated, then shook it.
Emma.
"Well, Emma, let me make your night more interesting." We talked for hours. I hadn't even noticed how time slipped away. He turned out to be a photographer, traveling between different countries, collecting countless fascinating stories. But more importantly, he listened. He really listened. I told him about my work, about the books I loved, even about how I once dreamed of becoming an artist, but gave it up for adult life. And he didn't just nod absent-mindedly. He asked questions, showed interest, kept the conversation going. It felt effortless. "And your husband?" he asked suddenly. I pressed my lips together.
He's a good man.
"We're just very different. Sometimes it feels like we're not who we used to be." Noah studied me closely. "Different? Or have you simply stopped feeling what you used to feel?" I didn't know how to answer. The music around us drowned out all other sounds, but in that moment, it felt like we were standing in our own little world. I looked at him, and something inside my chest pounded harder than it should have. "Emma, let's get out of here," he said suddenly. I didn't know what to do. Two voices fought in my head. One screamed, "You're married. This is wrong." The other whispered, "When was the last time you felt truly alive?" I made my choice. I took his hand. And in that moment, I had no idea that this choice would change my life forever. I don't remember exactly how we ended up outside. The night air cooled my flushed face, and the city looked different at this hour. It breathed, shimmered with lights, whispering something forbidden to me. Noah walked beside me, his fingers occasionally brushing against my hand, as if by accident. But I felt every touch, leaving an imprint on my skin. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. He smiled. "Wherever you want." It was dangerous. I knew that. I could have just said no, stopped, called a cab, gone home to my husband, and pretended this night never happened. But I didn't say no. We ended up at a small 24-hour cafe. It was nearly empty, save for an elderly man reading a newspaper in the corner and a waitress scrolling through her phone, looking bored. I ordered tea, he ordered black coffee. "Why photography?" I asked, clasping my hands together on the table. Noah took a sip, then answered thoughtfully. "I like capturing moments. People don't realize how quickly everything changes. They forget their emotions, their expressions, the moments of happiness. I help them hold on to them." I nodded, watching the steam curl from my cup. "And you?" His voice was calm, but there was something in it, something deeper.
What about me?
"What makes you happy?" I froze. When was the last time someone had asked me that? When was the last time I had asked myself? I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. "I don't know," I admitted. Noah studied me for a moment. "You know what's interesting? People always know what they don't like. But when you ask them what makes them happy, they get lost." I looked at him. "And do you know what makes you happy?" He smiled, leaning in slightly. "Right now? This conversation."
"And you?"
My heart skipped a beat. I looked away, but I could feel warmth spreading through me. Damn it. This was wrong. I was married. I couldn't flirt with another man. I couldn't allow myself to feel what I was feeling. But what was so wrong about a simple conversation? We walked for a while longer, and then he suggested we go to his place. I'm staying at a hotel. Just for another drink, nothing more. I should have said no, but I didn't. His hotel room was spacious, with large floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. I sat on the couch while he opened the minibar. Wine? I nodded. He poured 2 glasses and handed one to me. What should we toast to? He asked, his gaze locked on mine. I hesitated for a moment. To the moments we want to remember. He smiled. That's a good toast. We drank. The wine burned my throat, but I barely noticed. My entire focus was on him.
I don't know what happened next.
Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the soft music playing in the background. Or maybe it was just me.
I leaned in. So, did he?
When our lips met, I felt something inside me shatter. This wasn't just betrayal. This was an explosion. This was awakening. We didn't speak. We just felt.
His hands on my skin.
His breath against my ear. His lips tracing mine in the darkness. I knew this was wrong. But in that moment, I didn't care. I let myself forget everything. Forget that my husband was waiting for me at home. Forget that tomorrow, I would hate myself for this. Forget that I had crossed a line I could never uncross. The next morning, I woke up in his bed. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, and I stared at the ceiling, frozen. Noah was still asleep, his arm draped over my hip. Slowly, I sat up, careful not to wake him. Where was my phone? I found it on the nightstand. Dozens of missed calls. Liam.
Shit.
Panic surged through me. What had I done? I scrambled to gather my things. Noah stirred, his sleepy eyes opening to look at me. Running away? I have to go. This was a mistake. He studied me for a second, then nodded. I hurried out, closing the door behind me. In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were brighter. My lips were slightly swollen. I looked different, but I couldn't afford to think about that now. I got into a taxi and headed home. I swore to myself this was a one-time thing, that it would never happen again. I had no idea I had just set off a chain of events that would change everything. I arrived home just before dawn. Liam was still asleep, his steady breathing filling the bedroom. I carefully stepped into the bathroom, closed the door behind me, and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red, my skin looked pale, but there was something in my reflection that I hadn't seen in years, life. I knew this was wrong. I knew I was supposed to feel guilt, but I felt nothing. For the first time in a long while, I felt alive. I quickly washed away the traces of the night, slipped into my robe, and crawled into bed next to my husband. In his sleep, he instinctively turned towards me, wrapping his arms around me. His scent was familiar, comforting, but it no longer stirred the emotions it once did. I closed my eyes, trying to fall asleep, but sleep never came. Weeks passed. I returned to my normal routine, doing everything I could to forget that night with Noah. I ignored his messages, declined his calls. I convinced myself that it was just a moment of weakness, a mistake I would never repeat. But then one morning something changed. I woke up with an unsettling wave of nausea. At first, I blamed it on last night's dinner. Liam and I had ordered sushi, and I figured something hadn't been fresh. But then it happened again the next day. And the day after that, I felt an unusual weakness, as if my body was no longer functioning as it should. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. No, this couldn't be happening. But deep down, I already knew the answer. I stood in the pharmacy, gripping the pregnancy test in my hands. My heart pounded. It felt like everyone was staring at me, like they knew what I had done. I quickly paid, rushed out, and practically ran home as if trying to escape from something invisible. Sitting in the bathroom, I stared at the box for several minutes before I gathered the courage to take the test. 3 minutes felt like an eternity. I paced the bathroom, clenching my fists, trying to calm myself down. When the timer on my phone beeped, I held my breath and stepped forward. 2 lines. I was pregnant. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the floor. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. I was pregnant. This was supposed to be a moment of joy, right? Then why did I feel such overwhelming fear? I gasped sharply. What if the baby wasn't Liam's? Nausea hit me again. I staggered, gripping the sink to keep myself steady. This couldn't be real. I tried to recall the dates, to do the math in my head, but the more I thought about it, the worse my realization became. The chances that Noah was the father were far too high. I stepped out of the bathroom, feeling the panic rise inside me. Liam was getting ready for work, buttoning up his shirt. When he saw me, concern flickered in his eyes. Emma, you look pale. Are you okay? I swallowed the lump in my throat.
Yeah.
Just didn't sleep well. He frowned, stepping closer and wrapping his arms around me. Are you sure you're okay? A lump formed in my throat. I needed to tell him.
Right now.
But I couldn't. How could I? How could I tell him I didn't know if this baby was his? So I forced a weak smile and nodded. I'm fine, just a little tired. Liam ran a hand through my hair, his fingers gently grazing my cheek. Maybe we should go out tonight? You need to relax a little. Yeah, of course. He kissed my forehead, grabbed his briefcase, and left the house. The moment the door closed, I collapsed onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. What was I going to do? What if he found out? I couldn't just sit and wait. I had to know the truth. I opened my laptop and started searching. How to get a prenatal paternity test. This was the only way. I couldn't leave this to chance. I had to know who the father of my child was, and I would do whatever it took to find out before it was too late. I couldn't afford to wait. Time was running out, and the fear of Liam discovering the truth consumed me. That same day, I booked an appointment at a clinic that conducted prenatal paternity tests. They explained that in order to proceed, I would need to provide a DNA sample from the potential father. And that was the problem. I couldn't just go to Liam and ask for his DNA. I had to come up with another plan. That evening, Liam took me out to dinner as promised. We sat at our favorite restaurant, and for the first time in a long while, he seemed genuinely happy, even relaxed. I've noticed you've been different lately, he said, taking a sip of wine. I froze. What do you mean? He smiled. I don't know how to explain it, but you seem alive. You used to always look a little distant, like your mind was elsewhere. But now, there's something different in your eyes. I nearly choked on my water. If only he knew why I seemed different. A cold wave of panic rushed through me. It's just the hormones, I quickly said. Pregnancy changes a lot. Liam chuckled and placed his hand over mine. I'm so happy we're finally going to be parents. My heart clenched. He didn't know that he might be raising another man's child. I couldn't tell him. I couldn't let him find out. The next morning, I knew what I had to do. I waited until Liam went to take a shower and quickly grabbed his toothbrush. It was dirty. It was deceitful. But it was the only way. I placed it in a plastic bag, tucked it into my purse, and headed straight for the clinic. The doctor, a young woman with a cold, professional gaze, took the bag from me and glanced up. Are you sure you want to do this? I swallowed hard.
Yes.
She nodded. The results will be ready in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 14 days of lies. 14 days of pretending that everything was fine. I thanked her, left the clinic, and took a deep breath. It'll be okay. I'll find out the truth, and then I'll decide what to do next. Those 2 weeks were pure hell. Liam suspected nothing, but I felt like I was walking on the edge of a cliff. Noah kept messaging me. Emma, are you ignoring me? I want to see you. I can't stop thinking about you. I should have replied. I should have told him the truth. But I was scared. So, I remained silent. 14 days passed. I stood in front of the clinic doors, my fists clenched. My heart pounded. My mind was blank. I stepped inside, gave my name, and they handed me an envelope. My fingers trembled as I opened it. I shut my eyes, took a deep breath, and slowly unfolded the paper. I scanned the lines until I reached the final conclusion. And suddenly, the world around me stopped. The father is Noah. I felt my knees buckle.
No.
This couldn't be happening. But it was. I was carrying the child of a man I had spent just one night with. I stepped out of the clinic and walked down the street in a daze, feeling nothing. I had to tell Liam. I had to tell Noah. But then what? Liam would never forgive me. Noah. I didn't even know if he wanted a child. What was I going to do? Only one question echoed in my mind. Can I hide the truth? And if so, how far was I willing to go with this lie? I walked home clutching that damned envelope in my hands. One thought kept ringing in my head. What now? I had a choice. I could confess and lose Liam, or I could lie and pretend that nothing had happened. My heart pounded as I opened the apartment door. Liam was home. He sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, and when he saw me, he looked up and smiled. Hey, love. How are you feeling? I clenched the envelope in my coat pocket. I'm fine. Just a little tired. He got up and walked over to me. I was thinking maybe we could watch a movie tonight. I even got your favorite ice cream. His kindness was killing me. He was a good man. He truly loved me. And how could I tell him that I was carrying another man's child? I couldn't. So I lied. I smiled and nodded. That sounds perfect. That night, I barely slept. I tossed and turned, listening to Liam's steady breathing. In his sleep, he pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me, and it was unbearable. I felt like I was suffocating. I slipped out of bed, stepped onto the balcony, and took a deep breath of cold air. My phone vibrated.
Noah.
I froze. I could have ignored it, but I didn't. I answered. Emma, his voice was calm, but there was tension in it. Why have you been ignoring me? I closed my eyes. Because it's for the best. For who? For you? I stayed silent. I need to see you. That's a bad idea.
Please.
I should have said no, but I didn't. We met in a small park near my house. Noah stood by a bench, arms crossed over his chest. The moment I walked up, he knew something was wrong. What happened? I didn't speak. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Emma, just tell me the truth. I swallowed hard. I'm pregnant. His eyes widened. He was silent for a few seconds, as if trying to process what I had just said. And it's mine? I nodded. I had expected different reactions: shock, anger, panic. But Noah just exhaled, his face unreadable. So, why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I'm married, Noah. My voice trembled. Because I don't know what to do. He looked at me for a long moment. Did you tell him? I shook my head. And you're not planning to, are you? Again, silence. Noah nodded slowly. Do you want me to just disappear? His words hit me like ice water. I don't know. This is my child too, Emma. I have a right to know. But if Liam finds out, what? His voice grew sharper. What happens if he finds out? I didn't know the answer. I just knew that I didn't want that to happen. Just give me time, okay? Noah let out a bitter laugh. Time? You have a few months before he starts noticing something's off. I lowered my gaze. Please, Noah. He was quiet for a long time before finally nodding.
Fine.
But I'm not just going to sit around and wait. I looked up at him. What does that mean? It means that if you don't tell him, I will. My heart stopped. You wouldn't. I would. Because this isn't just your lie, Emma. It's my life too. And my child's. Cold fear rushed through my body. If he told Liam, I would lose everything. I had to come up with a plan.
Fast.
That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, thinking of a way out. I knew I couldn't let Noah ruin everything. So, I decided to act first. I turned to Liam in bed and whispered, I want to take a paternity test. He looked up at me, confused. What?
Why?
I smiled, trying to sound lighthearted. I just want to be sure. For peace of mind. He chuckled. I love you, but you worry too much sometimes. I squeezed his hand.
Please.
He sighed but agreed. I knew I had only one shot, and I had to make sure the test results said exactly what I needed them to say. I couldn't afford to lose. The next morning, I sat in front of my laptop, searching for a clinic that would alter test results for a price. I knew it was wrong, but I had already gone too far. I couldn't stop now. I couldn't let Liam find out the truth. I was willing to do anything to protect my life, even if it meant another lie. I sat in front of my laptop, scrolling through page after page of clinics. My heart pounded in my chest, and my fingers gripped a cup of tea that had long gone cold. I knew that what I was doing was wrong, but there was no other way. If I let the truth come out, I would lose everything, and I couldn't let that happen. Finally, I found what I was looking for. A private laboratory that promised a guaranteed confidential result. I tapped on the contact number, and within seconds, a calm, professional female voice answered. Genx Laboratory, how can I help you? I took a deep breath. I need a paternity test. But I want to be sure of the results. A pause. Are you saying you need a certain outcome?
Yes.
I heard a quiet chuckle. We offer such services. It won't be cheap. Money is not a problem. All right. You'll need to bring the DNA samples and specify what result you need. I wiped my damp palms on my pants. I want the test to show that the father is my husband. That can be arranged. Come in tomorrow, and we'll discuss the details.
Click.
I set the phone down and stared at the screen. It was simple. I would bring the samples, pay the money, and get the right test. And then the problem would disappear. I could live as if nothing had ever happened. The next morning, I gathered everything I needed. Liam had already given his sample at the official clinic, but I also took a backup sample of his DNA, a second toothbrush, to submit to the private lab. I also had to find a way to get Noah's DNA so the lab could falsify the results. I sent him a short message. We need to meet. It's important. His reply came instantly. Where? Same place as last time. In an hour. I slipped my phone into my pocket and felt a sinking weight in my stomach. If this plan failed, I was finished. But if it worked, I could keep my life exactly as it was. I met Noah in the park. He looked tense, his arms crossed as he studied me. So, what did you decide? I pretended to hesitate. I thought about it, and you're right. You deserve to know the truth, too. His brows furrowed in surprise. You're serious? I nodded. I want you to take a test, too. He nodded. All right. I'm ready. I handed him a sterile swab in a sealed packet. I already made arrangements with a clinic. Just swab the inside of your cheek and give it back to me. I'll take care of everything. He hesitated for a moment, then took the swab and did as I asked. When I took it back, it felt like another piece of me broke. But I couldn't back out now. I forced a smile. Thank you. Soon we'll know for sure. He studied me for a long moment, as if trying to see through me. I feel like you're hiding something. My heart stuttered. Noah, don't overthink it. Everything will be fine. I turned and walked away before he could ask any more questions. The next day, I submitted both samples to the private lab. The receptionist took them without much care and tossed them into a container. Payment? I pulled out an envelope filled with cash and handed it to her. She quickly counted the bills and nodded. In 3 days, your results will be ready. You'll get exactly what you need. I clenched my fists, trying to suppress the rising wave of panic in my chest. Now, all I had to do was wait. Those 3 days felt like an eternity. I tried to act normal, played the role of the perfect wife, smiled, hugged Liam, listened to him talk about work. I pretended that nothing had happened, but inside I was drowning. When the day of the results arrived, I hadn't slept the night before. The official lab, where Liam had submitted his sample, also sent their results. I opened them first, even though I already knew the truth. Probability of paternity, 0%. My hands trembled. I took several deep breaths and opened the second envelope, the one I had been waiting for the most. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. Liam Jenkins. I won. I did it. I rewrote reality. And now, no one would ever know the truth. I could live as if nothing had ever happened. I could raise this baby with Liam. I could leave Noah in the past. I could just forget. But you know what's funny? Lies are like poison. And even when you think you've buried them deep enough, they always find a way to destroy you. I just didn't know how yet. I should have felt relieved. But I didn't. I had everything I wanted. A forged test, a husband who suspected nothing, the stable life I had fought to protect. So why, when I looked at those fake results, did I feel nothing but emptiness? Liam was ecstatic. He didn't even doubt the results. He held me, pressed his hand to my stomach, and told me this was the happiest moment of his life. You have no idea how happy I am, Emma. I've dreamed about this moment my entire life. His voice was so sincere, so full of warmth, that I felt sick. I smiled and nodded, though one thought kept echoing in my head. If he ever finds out the truth, it will destroy him. But he wouldn't find out. The truth died along with the real test. I could move on. I could forget. Could I? A few days later, Noah texted me. I got my results too. Just as expected. I clenched the phone in my hand. He didn't say anything else. But I knew this wasn't over. Weeks passed. My body was changing, my belly growing, and everyone around me kept telling me how much I was glowing. But inside, I was fading. I was terrified. Every day, I lived in fear. What if someone finds out? What if Liam takes another test after the baby is born? What if Noah tells the truth? What if my lie eventually explodes and takes everything from me? And worst of all, what will I tell my child when they ask who their real father is? I needed to control the situation. So I met with Noah. What do you want? I sat across from him in a small cafe, gripping my hands so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. He stared at me for a long moment. Do you think I'll disappear just because you want me to? I just want you to leave me alone. And what about my child? It's not your child, I said quietly. He laughed. Oh, so that's how you're playing it? The child has my DNA, but you've decided I have no connection to them? I swallowed the lump in my throat. I can't let you destroy my life. Noah leaned forward. You already destroyed it yourself, Emma. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. He looked at me for a few more seconds before saying, I'll give you time, but just know, I won't be a shadow. If you choose to live in a lie, that's your choice. But sooner or later, the truth will find you. I stood up and walked away quickly. Months passed. Liam was the happiest man in the world. He was setting up the nursery, buying baby clothes, running his hands over my stomach and whispering, "I love our child so much. I'll do everything to make sure they have the best life." And I could feel something inside me slowly cracking. The lie I had built so carefully was starting to eat me alive. One night, I woke up to the sound of a message notification. It was a video. I opened it. A cold sweat broke out over my body. On the screen was Noah. "If you don't tell him the truth, I will." And the next morning, I realized something. I was no longer in control. The lie I had so carefully crafted was beginning to collapse. And I had no idea what would happen next. I sat in the dark, clutching my phone. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would break free from my chest. Noah had sent me a video, and that meant only one thing. My lie was over. I pressed play. Noah appeared on the screen, sitting in his apartment. His expression was serious, almost cold.
Hey, Emma.
If you're watching this, it means you still have a chance to do the right thing. I held my breath. You told me you wanted to hide the truth. You faked a test. You made me stay silent. But listen carefully. If you don't tell Liam everything yourself, I will. A chill ran through my body, despite the warmth of the room. I'm giving you exactly 24 hours. If you don't tell him the truth, I'll send this video to him. And then you won't be able to fix anything.
Click.
The video ended. A wave of panic surged through me. I couldn't let this happen. I couldn't lose everything because of one mistake. I knew there was only one way out. I had to get ahead of Noah. I had to tell the truth myself before he did it for me. I walked out of the bedroom, my legs barely moving. Liam was sitting in the living room, scrolling through the news on his tablet. He looked up and smiled when he saw me. "You're up late. Everything okay?" I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come out. How was I supposed to say this? How was I supposed to shatter his world? How was I supposed to destroy my own life?
"We need to talk."
My voice sounded strange. Liam put down his tablet, his smile fading. "What's wrong?" I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and said the words that would end everything. "This baby, it's not yours." Silence. A deep, piercing silence that sliced through me like a blade. I was too scared to open my eyes. But when I finally did, I saw something terrifying in his face. Not anger, not hatred. Something far worse. Disappointment.
"What?"
His voice was quiet, as if he still didn't believe what he had just heard. I clenched my fists. "I cheated on you, Liam." His face went pale. I saw him inhale sharply, his chest rising and falling rapidly. "Tell me this is a joke." I stayed silent. He took a step back. "Emma, you can't." I broke. "I made a mistake. I didn't mean for this to happen, but it did." He ran a hand over his face, breathing heavily. "With who?" I shut my eyes. "It doesn't matter. It matters to me." I couldn't say it. I couldn't say his name, because that would make it even worse. But he already knew.
"Noah."
It wasn't even a question. I snapped my head up. "You knew?" He let out a bitter laugh. "I suspected."
"You changed after that night."
"I saw you hiding your phone, avoiding saying his name." He shook his head, as if trying to force the thought out of his mind. I didn't want to believe it. "I thought you were just stressed because of the pregnancy." He closed his eyes. I was such an idiot. I took a step toward him. "Liam, I love you. I didn't want this. I was lonely. I was lost." He raised his hand, stopping me. "Don't." His eyes were filled with pain. "Don't you dare justify this. You weren't lonely. You just made a choice." And he was right. I knew there was nothing I could say to make this better. So I stayed silent. For a long time. He took a deep breath, crossing his arms. What are you going to do? My voice cracked. I don't know. He smiled. I do. He grabbed his phone and started typing something. I stared at him, confused. And then he turned the screen toward me. It was a message. To Noah. Come over. We need to talk. She told me everything. I shot up straight. What are you doing? He didn't answer. He just pressed send. And in that moment, I realized something. It was over. My lie was dead. But I had no idea what ruins it would leave behind. I stood in the middle of the living room, unable to feel my own body. My hands were freezing, my legs barely holding me up. Liam sat in the armchair across from me, arms crossed. His expression was calm, but I could see the storm brewing inside him. He was waiting for Noah to arrive. I wanted to run. I wanted to hide. But where? You can't run from yourself. No more than 20 minutes had passed when the doorbell rang. I flinched. Liam didn't even move. Open it, he said coldly. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and forced my legs to move toward the door. I knew who was standing on the other side. I knew that the moment I opened it, there would be no turning back. I pressed the handle. Noah stood there, tall, confident, but tension lingered in his gaze. He knows? He asked quietly. I nodded. He exhaled heavily. Can I come in? I didn't answer. I just stepped aside. Noah walked in, his eyes immediately locking onto Liam's. I could feel the weight in the air, thick with unsaid words, with pain and disappointment. Liam slowly stood up. He didn't look angry. That was even scarier. So, it's you? He said, voice flat. Noah nodded silently. Great. Liam pressed his lips together. I need to understand something. Did you know she was married?
Yes.
And you still did this? Noah clenched his jaw. I didn't force her. She made her choice. I flinched. Liam let out a quiet laugh, but there was nothing amused about it. You don't even realize what you destroyed, do you? Noah met his gaze. I only know one thing. This is my child, and I have the right to be in their life. Those words hit me harder than I expected. I felt the ground beneath me shake. Liam's fists tightened. You have nothing. That's not your decision to make. Noah took a step forward. Liam didn't step back. Emma? I flinched. They were both looking at me now. Do you want him in this child's life? Liam's voice was ice.
I didn't know what to say.
If I said yes, it meant Noah would always be a part of my life. If I said no, I would be taking away a father from my child. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Noah pressed his lips together. I see. I saw the pain in his eyes. He turned toward the door. I didn't stop him. Liam stayed silent too. The door closed behind Noah. And just like that, he was gone. Between me and Liam, only emptiness remained. I felt it deep in my bones. We were strangers now. He lifted his gaze to me and said the words I had feared most. I can't be with you anymore. I felt my heart shatter. Liam, I loved you, Emma.
But you betrayed me.
Not just with your body. You lied. You faked tests. You played the role of the perfect wife while our life had already died. His eyes were full of pain. I can't forgive you. I clenched my fists, trying to hold back the tears. But this child, you love them. His lips tightened. I thought they were mine. My breath hitched. But they're still part of me. They're innocent in all of this. Liam stayed silent for a long time. Then he sighed. I don't know what to do next. I only know that I can't live with you anymore. His words tore me apart. He grabbed his jacket and left. I was alone. And in that moment I realized the truth had found me after all. And now I had to live with its consequences. Silence. The apartment was so quiet I could hear my own breathing. Liam was gone. Noah was gone. I was alone. I should have been prepared for this. I knew that, sooner or later, everything would collapse. But I wasn't prepared for the emptiness that followed. I sat in the middle of the living room, my hands cradling my stomach. Inside me, a new life was growing, but I had lost everything that came before it. 2 days passed. Liam didn't return. I tried calling him several times, but he didn't answer. His things were still in place, as if he had just gone for a walk and would be back any minute. But I knew he wasn't coming back. I knew he would never look at me the same way again. My phone vibrated.
Noah.
I hesitated, but picked up. How are you? His voice was calm, but I could hear the concern in it. I closed my eyes. I don't know. Did he leave?
Yes.
Noah exhaled. I'm coming over. Don't. Emma, I won't let you go through this alone. I'm just as responsible for what happened. I want to help. I wanted to refuse. But I knew I couldn't be alone. Okay. Noah arrived within an hour. He stood at the door, looking exhausted. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to blame him for everything. But this wasn't just his mistake. I had made a choice too.
How are you?
He asked quietly. Tired. What are you going to do now? I sighed. I don't know. Noah sat down beside me, reached out, and placed his hand on my stomach. I should have pulled away. I should have told him this was wrong. But for the first time in days, I felt warmth. I'm not running away, Emma. This is my child. I want to be in their life. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I don't know if I can forgive you. I'm not asking you to, but I'll still be here. Weeks passed. Liam filed for divorce. He didn't answer my messages. He didn't want to see me. Then I received the official letter from his lawyer. He was waiving any parental rights to the baby. I knew he had the right to do that. But as I read the letter, I felt something inside me die. Noah kept his promise. He was there. He took me to my doctor's appointments. He cooked for me when I couldn't bring myself to eat. He slept on the couch because he knew how hard it was for me to fall asleep alone. But there was still a wall between us. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? He asked one evening. I looked at him for a long moment. I don't know. He nodded. But will you give me a chance? I placed my hand on my stomach. I'll give our child a chance. And for the first time in a long time, I felt that maybe things weren't truly over. That maybe something new awaited me. I didn't know if I would ever be able to forget what had happened. But I knew one thing. My life was starting over. And now I had to live for the one growing inside me.
Please subscribe to our channel Stellar Stories. We have new amazing stories coming out every day. Thank you.